Yes, welcome to Tuesday again, episode 4.
We're already at four. Where's the time going? But we're going strong, four straight, and no signs of slowing down.
Yep, here we go. Well, welcome everybody back, episode 4, to putting the feel back in Tuesday. So we a podcast that's dedicated to like self-discovery and self-improvement and providing a safe space to discuss lots of topics that surround that subject, like mindfulness and pathways to positivity, community, just all of those things, and maybe offer some perspectives to everybody that might maybe the things people didn't think of, or just ways of coming at things from a different angle and embracing our true selves. So welcome back.
Let's go.
Yay.
Wendy, first things first, what brought the feel to your Tuesday?
So my feel this Tuesday, I'm working on a little bit of calm. Just there's things that come at us in our life that can be whichever different or unknown or scary. So yeah, this week I've had to work a little bit on bringing in the calm and what that is for me and what helps me feel calm. So there's been a little extra homework with meditation. That's one thing that certainly helps me. But I think that's an important thing for people to recognize. Helps them feel calm, or just sort of brings them down to a distracted place if they can, and be able to take their unknown or their little fears or worries and have somewhere to put them. So that was what I have been a little bit distracted with this week.
Oh, absolutely, though. I'm surprised we have not discussed the topic of calm yet. That one kind of just hit me in the face. I'm like, even for myself, I'm like, I need to learn to you can have passion, but you can also channel it in a calm manner. And it kind of just made me think to myself quick, like I'm always so up here, and
Yeah.
it's nice to bring it down and to be calm. Like calmness is so important, and yeah, I'm definitely just you saying that. I'm gonna even try and carry that into my day now. Just remember to be calm.
Yeah, and there's lots of different, everybody's going to have different ways, but breathing exercises, or like I said, the meditation, or even if it's just the hobby that you do when you're there, you're just mindlessly doing it, just whatever might help bring in a little bit of peace for a tiny bit to help you out. Yeah. Yeah, so
Totally.
what's putting the feel in your Tuesday this week?
Well, for me, I've got some great news for my Tuesday. We're just letting the world know that my girlfriend is now 5 months pregnant. So my lifelong dream of being a father is now gonna come true. And gosh, it's just been such a grateful and overwhelming feeling because yeah, I've just with my growing up, I had my mother and my stepdad, and I loved them both to pieces. And I've just always thought from a young age, like, if I was a dad, how would I do it? And how would I be the best dad ever? So now my time is coming. So I'm so
Yay!
excited.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I just can't wait to bring it into this world. Well, Bales will bring it into the world, and I'll be
Right.
there.
Yeah, that's going to be amazing, and you will learn on the fly, and you will be the dad that you were meant to be, however that folds for you. And same with Bailey. She will be the mom that she's supposed to be. Your guys' journeys connecting there. That's amazing.
Thank you so much. And if anyone who's listening right now, if you are a parent yourself, I would just love to know what kind of initial feelings you got when you first found out about your first pregnancy. I know I've gone from both ends of the spectrum of being afraid to being excited to feeling unequipped to feeling like I'm going to be the best dad ever. It jumps back and forth every day. And yeah, and then you see people have their first and then they end up with four so fast. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens with my journey. I would just love to know what everyone else's feelings were around their first pregnancy. Would be awesome to know.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Put those in the car. I love to hear those kinds of stories. if you want mine, I mean, it sounds similar, right? Everybody has that up and down. Am I going to be able to do this? And, sort of what is it like? But it is amazing how, I mean, maybe it's different for the person who's carrying, but it is amazing how fast you just sort of jump into that mode. You're already in that protective, what have I got to do mode. And, sometimes everybody's different with what they can do in their bodies and stuff. But like we seen the pregnancy test was positive because I used to smoke. I sat on the couch and I had one last cigarette and gave the rest to Steve. That was it. Done. Like, and
Wow, just
the
like that.
ability to just stop because you're just now so acutely aware of what's going on, right? And you're already in that mode. So yeah,
Absolutely.
that
So,
was
if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you had your first?
29.
Oh, wow. 29.
Yes. I had this thing in my head. We didn't plan that way, but for some reason I just was like, it almost feels like I would need to have my first one by 30 for some reason. It was and so it's not like, when I got with my partner that I was like, okay, let's go. Well, look what date, how old am I? It just ended up working out that way. But if for a long time in my head, I was like, I really just want first one by the time I'm 30. I don't know why.
Well, no, that's awesome. I'm just curious because it's just I find like gosh, nowadays it's like 24 until you're really starting to find your stride in the world.
Yeah.
And so it's so interesting to hear like some people had their first at 17 and some I heard some lady tell me the other day she had her first at like 49. So
Yes.
it's unbelievable.
That's a more common story these days.
Yeah, I
Later.
bet. Awesome. Well, that was great to touch on. So, how about now, Wendy, we get into our daily intention? What are we going to carry with us for the week?
All right. So let's get it done. Still using our gratitude deck. So let's see
Awesome.
which one pops out for us this morning. Oh, there we go. I think the past couple of weeks has been an inspiration one or a reflection one. I don't remember. They were two of the same.
And the
Okay,
universe
so
just tossed this one out instantly at us.
yep, that one was fast. Okay, so here's today's. It is an inspiration card again. So here it is. Imagine yourself manually turning off your autopilot mode. Look around. This day has never existed before.
Imagine yourself manually turning off your autopilot.
Yes.
Already that is very interesting to me. 'Cause, and then
Yep.
how does it finish?
Look around. This day has never existed before.
Look around. This day has never existed before. Wow. So that literally just encapsulates gratitude to the absolute max. That no wonder that's
Yes.
a part of the gratitude deck.
Yes.
So what do you initially feel out of that card? Like what feelings get pulled out of you when you hear that one?
So first with the first half for sure. Well, of course, the gratitude for the reminder and being in autopilot mode, like even reading it this morning there, I was like when I pulled it, I was like, oh yeah, okay, man, yeah, that's me these days. Is when you try to stay out of autopilot mode. So um pretty close off the hop, I guess. I would think that I might need to relook at a few things to see what's maybe putting me in that autopilot mode if I recognize that I am in that. Sometimes I totally agree that I'm not. I'm good. I keep pulling different things that I need to, but I think maybe this week I've been in a bit of autopilot mode. Um, and I think a lot of people maybe forget that they're in autopilot mode. So sitting there and thinking about what that might mean for you, that if you're doing the same thing every day, and if you checked in with yourself, or you just making it through each day, um, are you in autopilot mode? See if you think so, and what you can do to change it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the reason I actually love this card, and maybe I might be able to touch on kind of why you could also be in autopilot mode, and many of us. So I've heard this great quote where a lot of the times, like we live the same day for 40 years in a row or something. Let's say you get into a career, so you're Monday to Friday, you get up, you go to work, you come home, maybe you feed the kids, and then you watch your favorite show. Let's say it's Survivor, and then kind of wind down, and then brush your teeth, go to bed, repeat. And then we kind of get
Yeah.
into that little routine. And the weekend, luckily, it comes to kind of break up that monotony of like autopilot mode because you're just trying to
Yes.
get to Friday. And
Yes.
so, what I loved about the second part of this card is look around. This day has never existed before. So, even in the monotony, I'm butchering the word, but
No, no. Yeah.
yeah, um, even within all the monotony of your Monday to Friday, what it's basically saying is on your drive to work, it's the same drive every day, but maybe today you'll notice something you've never noticed, and you can be grateful for that. And
Yep.
it's about, yeah, leaving that autopilot where your body probably has so much muscle memory from doing the same routine day after day after day. But even within that routine that we have to live, which, um, you can look around and still find the beauty and the stop to smell the roses kind of thing, where there's so much still new to discover within our daily routine. So that's kind of how I see that card. So if you're someone who is in that autopilot, just look around a little more and just find something new about your routine that maybe you can start to look forward to.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have we driven the same route or walked the same route and been like, how long has that been there? I've lived here for 10 years and I've so something made you look over there differently today than you did yesterday. It's that concept to
Absolutely.
yeah, look around. We doesn't mean you have to like pitch responsibilities and if your day is the same every day because you have to be at work at the same time every day and home at the same time every day. We can't pitch that out the window. But
Mm-mm.
it's easy to like forget the little things in between when you get in that little autopilot mode. So even if it's doing something different or trying to incorporate something fun in sort of a break time or start something different, just to mix it up because we do all still have to follow our responsibilities. But yeah, this your routine might be the same, but the specific day has never existed before. So yeah, just look around, be aware.
There's endless new possibilities. Like I remember like when I would commute to work on my bike, every day you put up maybe a new song to hype you up on the way to work.
Yeah.
And then if you come into work and maybe, you're all grouchy, maybe try coming in with a smile and a
Yeah.
great happy attitude and just try it once, even if it's not you, just try some new whatever, try something new. And
Yeah.
because this day has never existed before. Therefore, you can be whoever you want to be on that day.
You bet. And you never know what's gonna sort of come at you and what you can see when you pay attention and look up and look around. Just I thought of a perfect example as you were talking of something I've seen on social media. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a giant Kevin Smith fan. And he did a post a while ago. He was hiking the canyon where he lives, and there was a kid sitting on a bench scrolling on his phone wearing a clerk's hat. And that's the first movie Kevin Smith ever made. It's quite popular for it. He's wearing a clerk's hat. And Kevin Smith walks up and he's like, nice hat, dude. The kid never looked up. Like, just kept scrolling. Thanks. Just kept scrolling. And he said, I stood there for a minute to give the kid a kid never looked up. And so
Oh,
he
and
just,
he made the
well,
hat?
he made the movie. Yeah, Kevin Smith like
Oh,
wrote and
wow.
starred in Clerks. So he also played Silent Bob in the movie. He's very popular for that character as well. He'd never looked up. He was being complimented on his hat by Kevin Smith himself. So just be aware. Always look up. Always look around. Just see what the day can bring you, and mix up your autopilot mode. It's okay to go into it because it happens, but mix it up.
Oh, absolutely. And I love what you said there about look up. Do you know how many times I look up at the sky and I'm like, When's the last time I actually looked at the sky? Like this is here, it's beautiful.
Yeah, what there's a lot of times, yeah, just look up, right? That the last time I was outside with Northern Lights, it was quite late at night, and my neighbor had just gotten home, and he had been outside for a little bit doing some stuff, and he eventually like looks up, and I'm in the middle of the street taking pictures, and he's like, "It's so late. What are you doing in the middle of the street?" And I was like, "Look up." And he had never seen the Northern Lights before. That kid's eyes just, I mean, kid, sorry, he's 25. He was like, "Oh my God." He stood there with me in the middle of the street, and I had more fun watching him almost than the lights, and he was standing under them, right? So, yeah, just look up. Yeah.
Something about sharing with other people feels so good.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, yeah, life is meant to be shared because doing things alone just kind of takes the fun out of everything.
That's right. Yes. You can, yeah, have that opportunity to share, you bet. Yeah.
Awesome. So, great intention for the day.
Yes.
Get out of autopilot, just find something new to the day. Find even if it's a new thing you've never noticed. Great takeaway. So now, if we want to get into one of our two I guess categories for today, we were going to touch on, first of all, I think we wanted to talk about boundaries.
Yes.
So
Boundaries.
this is what I'm thinking about boundaries, Wendy. The way I see boundaries, and you might have a completely different perspective. We're talking about, are we talking personal boundaries here?
Yeah, I mean that's one to start with when it comes to self-improvement, right? Personal boundaries, you bet.
That's the first thing that comes to mind for me with boundaries is our personal boundaries. And I've been thinking about this topic because with my partner Bailey, you almost need some yin and yang in your relationships,
Mm-hmm.
balance each other out. And
Yeah.
I love the way Bales is because I can learn from her, and I feel like she learns from me too. So it's just great when you have two people like that. And so I'm the kind of person where my boundaries are open. Anyone can honestly come in my space. I'm not even bothered if you're early in my space. You can say whatever you want to me. Just everyone's welcome. And
Okay.
I'm never gonna, there's no boundaries right away with me to like get into my, I guess, I'm not gonna say like inner circle, my small friend group, but anyone could come up to me and talk to me and I'll have a conversation and there's a potential chance we'll lead into being friends. So super open book kind of
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
And whereas Bales is super like very closed off to where you almost need to prove yourself before you get accepted into that inner bubble. And
Mm-hmm.
we're completely different. I'm just like, come on in. And she's like, nope, I need to vet you first. And
Yeah.
ultimately, I don't think there is a right answer to boundaries. Like, both are correct to be. Whatever helps you navigate through life and be the best, happiest version of yourself. If being closed off and remaining in control makes you feel like good, and then you take
Mm-hmm.
time with your relationships and you still build into good things, that's great too.
Yeah.
And so I guess with my thing about boundaries and neither being right, like where do you lie on that one, Wendy? And what do you think about boundaries and all this? Like, what do you think?
Well, between if I had to pick, if this was like a quiz in a magazine, I can already tell you I'm a Bailey.
Yeah?
When it comes to that type of boundary, maybe, and maybe that comes from yeah, just I've had enough things go on, happenstance in life that yeah, now people do need to prove themselves. Maybe not always, um, closer to the Bailey side, but definitely now. But I think the other side of that is also having the luxury to be able to do that because you can still be positive and open minded and want to get to know people, allow them in, but there is still you can still have that aspect of you kind of have to prove a tiny bit first.
Oh,
So I
absolutely.
might be a little bit more open, but as far as that, but I definitely there has to be a proof, I think, for sure for me. Yeah.
Well, absolutely, like everything in moderation. So, like the funny
Hmm.
thing is like I'm way off on the deep end where I probably should reel it in a little, but it's just
Yeah.
been who I am for so long,
Mm,
and but then what kind of sparked this whole thought for this weekly topic on boundaries was a lot recently since I do a live stream and so many people get to watch my life and be involved in it, that some people might take too big of a step into thinking they kind of step actually, my boundary is razor thin. I don't really have one, but they almost somehow still penetrate it and get in like they're crossing boundaries. They're getting very deep and involved and where they shouldn't be, like everyone should be out here and they're really trying to be in there. And so what I've learned about boundaries was when you're a guy who doesn't have many, some people might overstep it. Where I think if you're a vetter, they'll try and overstep before you vet, and then you'll be like, probably not the person for me, which is fine. But so recently, I feel like my boundaries have gotten overstepped. And what I think is kind of cruddy for people like that is that they almost take your kindness for weakness. And that's absolutely
mm,
not what it is. For me, it's like I inherently just want to accept everybody because everyone comes from a different walk of life and you want everyone to feel loved and accepted, right? But then I guess when you
mm.
are that person and that kind of character, some people will take advantage, whether they think they are or not, and overstep your boundaries because you haven't put any. So maybe that's where the pitfall is, where when you're not setting boundaries, um, people don't know where they are and when they're overstepping.
Exactly, because it's almost like there's two different ways of boundaries, kind of, right? So you've got your boundaries of how easily somebody can come in, but there is also the setting of boundaries. You may still stay um with a thin layer of, but sometimes we have to set boundaries, right? So but that I think that was a big key of what you said. I wrote it down. Some people mistake the kindness for weakness. And
Mhm.
that's the thing. If you don't have to like set a boundary or be hard anywhere, then yeah, that can be easy for people to mistake that. And people just need to remember that everybody has boundaries, whether they're weak or strong or what. And it takes a lot to set boundaries. Like I also wanted to touch on that too, because usually setting boundaries is hard to do for people. Like
Right.
once you actually have to make that line and set it down, that's hard. Do you find that you struggle with that part, setting a boundary?
I think that's what I've been trying to say this whole time is setting boundaries is exactly it. Like I almost just it's like that there's that awkward vibe where when you have to set that boundary. So it's almost like for me, I don't set any and I just hope they don't have the audacity to just
Mm,
overstep them. And then you run into those issues where they start to get overstepped. So and then you have to set boundaries later on, which and you run into you might in the end honestly run into more conflict with my approach.
yeah, yes. And I think what stops like some of the stuff that I've sort of heard in my world or in my lives, um, usually people will say, well, I don't want the other person to be hurt or unhappy or mad. Maybe the person will be defensive because, again, sometimes setting boundaries might make the other person feel displaced. Well, or they'll see, is this a way of you like improving then? What do you mean you no longer want me to? So people can put a bit of a back up. And that was a hard one for me to grasp it was not until in my 40s I even began to consider, setting boundaries. But for me, I sort of found that the trick was becoming comfortable with the uncomfortableness that the other person might be displeased.
Totally.
They they are allowed. They they are human, they're allowed to have an experience. It's sort of building up the tolerance of sitting in that uncomfortableness.
Not
And
needing everyone to like you. I think that.
yeah,
Like, not
yes.
everyone needs to like you, and not everyone needs to be the person for you. And if you're gonna back
Mhm.
down on who you are to make someone else like you, then that's not even the basis for a good foundation of a relationship or friendship.
Yes, exactly. And it is okay if the other person is sad, unhappy, mad, whatever the list is. It's okay. They are allowed to feel those feelings. They can have a displeasing emotional experience. That's okay. And I think it's in us to want to prevent that from happening.
Oh,
We don't,
absolutely.
no, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. You're gonna be mad. No, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. And now you put yourself in the back seat because someone else, they're allowed to have a displeasing experience. That's
I'm
okay.
a
You still
huge
have a boundary.
culprit for that, Wendy. I'm a huge culprit for that, where I don't want anyone to feel displeased or uncomfortable. So,
Yes.
yeah, so you just kind of let people continue to inch in and overstep until you have to be like, okay, you've done enough. I'm putting the line down. And
Yeah.
then they're almost in disbelief and in shock because they're like, well, how could he ever do this to me? This guy doesn't have any boundaries. And then you kind of have to put your foot down.
Yes. And that's them living that it's okay for them to be that way. And I think also a little bit from what I've dug in with my boundary setting a little bit, it's almost like the inner child in you is like, we're not going to feel safe anymore if that other person is whatever, insert the emotion they are today. Your inner child is a little bit like, okay, we don't feel safe anymore, but it's working on that tolerance for yourself of being uncomfortable and allowing the other person to have their emotional experience. It's totally fine. You are safe and you are allowed to own that boundary and set that boundary. It's sort of like take the time to go inward, and hold those feelings. And it doesn't take away from your value at all. And it does not um, take away from the original reason or need that you had to set the boundary.
Gosh, Wendy, honestly, I think you've unlocked something for me today with these boundaries. Just the way you're speaking here, like it honestly makes sense. Something about that inner child is just trying to stay safe, and so it's defense mechanisms, and just being okay with someone else being like them being uncomfortable with you. Said you got to just be okay that that person might not like those boundaries, but you got to like it's a practice. So this is something I'm going to take away and start practicing. Like it's more prominent for me than ever to need to start setting boundaries, especially now having a kid. Bailey's
Yeah.
already sent me two people who sent her extremely nasty messages, people who
Mm,
actually hang out in our chat all the time. And
yeah.
like it's
Mm,
extremely disappointing,
yes.
but yeah, it's something we're gonna have to work on because yeah, like this, my life partner comes before everyone else, and I'm
Yeah.
not going to stand for any disrespect for her. And I don't know why some of these people who,
Mm,
I don't know how they feel entitled to insert themselves into our life and our relationship, but
yeah.
more important than me now than ever that I have a child coming into this world with Bailey
Yeah.
that I need to set boundaries because, yeah, we don't do
And
that.
some of that might start to that protection mode that you maybe you're already in will sort of make that easier a little bit. It's like, again, I'm speaking from the woman point of view, but that like protective lion, right, sometimes makes things a bit easier. I definitely could set just really soft boundaries when Spencer was born. Because that mother lion, right? But not like the really hard ones that we need to sort of work on, but that'll slowly start to happen. And one of the things that I thought helped that I wanted to put out there, maybe if people want to try that, the more we live by our values and what's really important to us, I think, sort of the more we know what's part of us and implement our values in our everyday, the more you practice that, the more it's easier to do. And even if you sometimes that can be intimidating to people to try and figure out what's really in the core for their values, even if you just top 3 or 4 of them, what are your top few values? Just really sit there with yourself and see what they might be. And once you really put into practice living your values, it it's a clear guideline for setting your boundaries because you
Oh,
know what's at the core. I found that helped.
you are just spitting facts today, Wendy. Oh gosh, I love that. I wrote down values and scribbled it under a bunch because
Yeah.
that's truly what we all come down to. We all have a set of values, and the more you
Mhm.
stick to what you truly believe in, the more you're going to live an authentic life to yourself. And
Yeah.
being authentic, honestly, is like the best way to live. And when you're authentic, you don't need
Yeah.
everyone to like you. You just need the people who are authentic with the same values, and you'll
Yeah.
find your tribe that way. Not everyone needs to be friends,
Yes.
and not everyone needs to be the same. Just we all just need to get along at the end of the day. And within that,
Yeah.
we'll find those people that really match up to us, our kindred spirits. And those are
Yeah.
the people that we need to stick with.
Yeah, you bet. And so if you and it's okay if you have lots. If you can spit out your list, great. I don't know if you could think of 3 off the top of your head. I wrote a few down just in case. Because I'm somebody that has lots of them. But
Hmm.
friends and family are at the forefront for sure. Gratitude is at the forefront for sure.
Hmm.
But it can even be as simple as humor, being supportive, open-mindedness, generosity, whatever it might be, all of those things. Like I have a pretty big, but even within a pretty big list, you can sort of importance it out. And then just when living by that, it sort of helps you really know who you are and where you stand. And your values might change over time. And that it just really is a clear guideline for you in those. That's my boundary.
I love it. A big one for me that I just wanted to touch on when it comes to values is truth and honesty. So
Yeah.
I try to never lie ever. Like, I don't want to lie to anyone, and I especially don't want to lie to myself. So,
Right.
100% just taking the truth for what it is. If I messed up, I'll own up to it. If
Yeah.
I did something good, I'll whatever. But whatever, I think a good thing is whatever we'll do in front of people as our values, it needs to be the same values we do behind closed doors. So a lot of the times we put up a front about this and that when we're amongst people, but then are we truly living to those same values when no one's looking? Like, let's
Right.
say everyone's watching you and you pick up a piece of litter. Is that because, oh, like I probably should because everyone's watching me, it's the right thing to do? Or are you someone that even if no one's there, you're like, oh, there's a piece of litter, I probably should pick this up. And yeah, I think the values that you have in front of a group of people, you need to be honest with yourself and have those exact same values behind closed doors.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get it sort of just came to me a little bit as you were talking. I think your cross Canada journey is a clear example of the and boundaries because of the amount of people that would come visit and just always open. We're always open to it, no matter what time or where, to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Waking up with people, but to a certain degree, and that's great. I'm sure if you had an opposite personality when it came to boundaries, things like that, that would have been a very hard journey for you. Would have you even done it or done it differently? Probably. So, that, and that's clear in those types of things, having to just accept a bunch of different, stuff coming at you. So I think that's clear that you have that sort of openness, but we all have a line. If
Oh gosh.
get that line, I'm out. Yeah.
Well, exactly. And just to, I guess, kind of put a opposite example. So for my journey, when I walked across Canada, from the day one when people were watching, anyone was welcome to come. But then there's a guy who ran across Canada in 67 days.
Yeah.
And on his first attempt, he was actually stopping for people, trying to be like, okay, let's take a picture. Hi, thank you for the support. And he quickly lost his pace and he stopped. So then he was like, I'm gonna do this again. And if people literally pull over, I'm just gonna keep running. So he didn't stop for absolutely anybody. And I'm sure there's people pulling over like, hey, hey, let me talk to you. And he just has to keep
Oh,
going. So that's the ultimate like boundary setting. Like I'm out here literally to
yes.
run. Nobody stop me. If that makes me look rude, like a jerk, whatever. You can think what you want of me. I'm out here to do this.
He's laser focused. Yep.
Yep. So just thought that was interesting to where,
Hmm.
he set a boundary for himself, and I'm sure people wouldn't have gone visiting him because they know that's his boundary. He's not stopping, he's setting a record. Let's just leave him to do his thing.
Exactly. And that I imagine how hard. I mean, everybody's different. Who knows what his personality level is, but literally imagine how hard that would be to be running and there's somebody in a car waving or really trying to get your attention, and you know that they're there because whatever, they care, they have a story or donation. Like, that would be hard for me yet to just keep running. Yeah, but that's great. That's amazing when you can, because there's, you also set a boundary, but then you have to hold it. You have to keep it
Hmm.
there.
I remember there was times where I was running and I was like in a groove, and then someone pulls in and they're like literally a kilometer back, and it's like I'm just gonna pretend I didn't see you, and then it's like literally eats me away, and I'm like, oh, okay, let's go run a kilometer back to go see them. And for me, the
Yeah.
whole journey was to meet as many people as possible and to hear as many cancer stories. So what mine was
Mm,
never about setting any time records. So
yeah.
as many people as I could have met, I was happy to do it because that's what it was about, right? But
Right.
if the mission was different, um, absolutely, I probably wouldn't have stopped at those times. There's another cross Canada runner who's starting April 1st, and I've reached out to him because his goal is to do it in 99 days. So he wants to do
Okay.
75 kilometers a day, 99 days straight. And basically, the only reason I reached out to him was because I almost wanted to give him a heads up. I don't want to intrude in his journey and be like the gatekeeper, the guy who did it. All I wanted to do was inform him that if you're out there to run, just run, but be expected for a lot of people to stop. And so you're gonna have to almost decide if you're gonna start stopping for a bunch of people, you're gonna lose your pace and lose your real goal. So because he's
Yeah.
out there for Heart and Stroke Foundation. So it's gonna be very interesting to watch him juggle with that. Because if he is
Okay.
doing live streams and posting videos, people are gonna want to go out and see him and support him. He's a super Canadian guy and a guy you'd want to
Yes.
support. And so it's like I'm interested to see how he juggles that boundary.
Yeah, and it's what's your intention, because with boundaries also comes, intentions, but it what's yeah, you want to do it in the 99 days. So yeah, he has a bit of an intention there with time, but the natural stuff that kind of happens once people see a journey like that going live, and if he is doing lives and things like that. Yeah, it's, you just want to, the amazingness of it maybe people is what draws the people to want to actually go and be there, and yeah, bring people together. Yeah.
Right? And especially when you're on foot, you're moving so slow. So if you are in someone's area, they almost have like a day or two to be like, oh, maybe I will go see that guy because, it's a once in a lifetime chance to see this guy who's running across Canada come through my city. And then,
Mm.
right? So like I would if I heard of that. Like I went and seen John Nabbs, and
Yeah.
there's a couple I'm looking forward to this year that I'm gonna go see because it's awesome, it's epic, and like it'll be interesting to see how they all manage this. Are they just gonna like wave and be like thank you and just fist pump?
Hmm.
Like, that's what you get from them, or are they
Yeah.
actually gonna stop and like let some people open up? Like some people, it almost comes down to boundaries where I had none. So my goal was to run across Canada, but sometimes someone might catch my ear for an hour, and for me that's 6 to 9 kilometers I'm losing. In the grand scheme it adds up. So
Yes.
I think my regular finish date would have been around 120 days. Me, it came to 160, basically 40 days when you combine it all the time of me
Yeah.
stopping to talk to people.
Yes. Yeah. And there is also, because I think I've heard you say that you weren't expecting a lot of all of that. So that kind of falls in line in your boundary a little bit. You're like, well, this is what's happening, and this is what's you just didn't expect it. And so then you have to like recalibrate a little bit. Okay, this is happening more often. Okay, and so maybe that will happen to these new people starting this year. Maybe they're not expecting the amount, and maybe they'll decide that they want to embrace that a little bit, and maybe they won't. So it's all, sometimes you have to relook at a boundary and see if it's still lining up with the values, what got you to make the boundary in the first place. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for this season because
Yeah.
I think, like, not to toot my own horn, I just think with the journey I had, it brought a lot of interest, especially like on TikTok. I think a lot of
Mhm.
Canadians, because the way it works is it'll send your video out to local people, and if enough local people like it, they'll send it out to the greater area, and enough people like it, they'll send it out nationally. And so if you're someone scrolling and like you see this guy's in your local area, um, like
Mm.
a lot of people are just like, oh, like that's cool. I want to go give him a chicken burger, so I was a part of the journey. And it adds up. Like I
Mhm.
think,
Yeah.
especially with people seeing all these people doing it and all these people helping, it's so Canadian to like run
Mm.
across Canada thanks to Terry Fox that it's just
Yeah.
like in our blood to want to go help and support and see it. It's just such a Canadian thing to do.
And again, we're not a political platform here, but I mean, I don't pay a lot of attention to big news and stuff like that, but there definitely, I think, was a feeling of, people just staying in your own homes, doing your own thing, not, and then I don't agree with this or this, and then there's like headbutting, and like I've been telling my husband in the first few days there that I found you, I was like, almost besides what he's doing, the best part is watching people seeming to come together. I haven't seen that in a while. And like he literally just said he was hungry. And a minute later, there's a chicken burger. Like it's amazing. And people are coming together and jumping in to help. So it definitely, brought in a lot of positivity, right? So yeah, these new people that are starting, I'm sure I'll have all that to sort of consider once all those things start to happen for them.
Restored a lot of faith in my humanity, at least. So I
Yes.
feel like we've touched on boundaries, kind
I
of
got her.
everything around it. And now our next topic for the week was going to be expectations. So maybe if you want to kick us off with this one, Wendy, and I'll see what I can add into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Expectations is sort of what ends up leading to disappointment. Um, whether it's unrealistic expectations for ourselves or, what we're putting on other people, but sort of unbiased attention and maybe a little bit of detachment to the outcome can lead to pleasant surprises.
Hmm.
So if you're if you have expectations to something because you're really connected to it or you have certain thoughts about it, that's sometimes where it can start to veer off course. But if you're just sort of living in the moment a tiny bit and having attachment to those expectations, then it helps things happen a
So
little bit more fluently, naturally. Yeah.
I 100% agree that expectations lead to disappointment. 100, like
Hmm.
almost 100% of the time, because
Yeah.
I think where the start of the word to expect. Once you
Yes.
expect something, if you don't get that, you're gonna have your feelings hurt. So
Hmm.
where
Yeah.
I feel like I never even have it, I try not to have expectations anymore because every time I have expected anything from anyone, it's come back to slap me in the face. And
Yeah.
so I've kind of detached from the word expectations and I like to just live by hope. I just hope.
Mm.
And if it happens, great. And if not, not. But I don't expect anything.
Right. Right. Because, yeah, there is that little bit of, part of that part of hope is, the opportunity for different outcomes. And yes, not necessarily attaching. It has to be this way. And yes, that's where disappointment can happen. That's where her hurt feelings can happen. Um, it's all you living so hard in the belief that something is supposed to be this way and will happen in the future. That's what's happened. This is my expectation that it's going to go this way. And when you hang on to that so hard, it's yeah, when it doesn't work out that way, we fall.
I truly
Yeah.
believe that we should never put the only expectations we should have are expectations we have of ourselves,
Hmm.
because that's kind of how we hold ourselves up to our standards and live by our
Yeah.
values. And that's extremely important. We should expect certain things out of ourselves. Like if I'm
Yeah.
gonna go teach this classroom all day of kids, I'm gonna
Hmm.
have these expectations of myself that I'm not just gonna become senile and cranky and start bashing all the kids. But
Yes.
but once you start
Yeah.
like, yeah, back to expecting things from other people, that's where that I think it's honestly it's pretty clear cut. We should just never expect things from others because it's a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope. And even the expectations we put on ourselves, like just touching on, you saying we should only have expectations of ourselves, those also have to be realistic too. We've got to be realistic with ourselves because more than anything, I think our expectations determine our reality a little bit. So when they're unrealistic for ourselves or other people, but if we're talking about ourselves, you want to make it possible for yourself to be able to succeed, not have some wild. Now, I mean that's a slippery slope too because you do also want to like dream big. You absolutely dream big, do your thing, but you still need to climb the ladder or the stairs to get up to that dream big. So just work your expectations on the way up. It doesn't if you set something unrealistic off the hop, that's it. You're gonna some people just shut down because they feel, oh, I can't do this, or so it's really important to make sure that they're realistic goals for
Oh,
yourself. And
100%. And I
yeah.
think I gotta go back here because I feel like if I didn't say this, I wouldn't have learned anything in this last hour. Expectations for others actually do apply. And I think they do
Yes.
apply when we're setting boundaries. So kind of all ties in
Mm,
together. Like,
yes.
let's say you have a life partner. There actually is expectations there. Like, you're
Yep.
going to do 50% of contributing to the house, 50% of contributing to let's say your
Hmm.
children's welfare.
Yep.
There's just general expectations. And unfortunately, no matter what, those do lead to disappointment. I think expectations
Yeah.
and always does lead to disappointment, but hopefully the people that you have those expectations of are able to meet them. And if they don't meet your expectations and they start crossing boundaries, then it's time to make some new solutions.
Right. And communicate, right? Like, okay, I'm not necessarily sure we're on that same page because it is also easy to veer off course. It's not like once you know expectations and work them, you're good to go. It is a little bit easy to veer off course because we're sort of constantly jumping to conclusions about the world we live in and the people around us. It's just sort of kind of how it goes. So sometimes you just need to stop and do a little bit of a regroup, a little bit of a center. And yeah, if those things aren't happening with expectations with someone else, then communication I think is probably like a big one. And then if it's still not happening, then it's up to people whether they need to regroup again or what. But yeah.
So this might be a little bit of a side note, but what do we do if you have expectations and like someone is just consistently not meeting those expectations? Is that when you just like, and let's say it's someone you care deeply for, so like a family member even, if they're just
Mhm.
like constantly crossing your boundaries and not like living up to those expectations, it's such a tricky one because I feel like a lot of us will just let ourselves get walked over because it's just where it's easier for us to just be like, oh, forget it. This is who they are. They're just gonna keep being a jerk and not, respecting my boundaries and not living up to expectations. So, but this is my blood and flesh, so I have to love them no matter what.
Right. Um, One of the things that I worked on a little bit because expectations as well as boundaries was a really hard one. Um, a little bit of getting down to the root of, well, why do I have that expectation? So for your example, if it's flesh and blood and whatever's going on in that relationship, it isn't working, or you're expecting this from them and not getting it. One of the things I used to attach to my expectation was, well, they should be. Well, what is should according to who? Like, so if you break down the should, okay, why should that person treat me this way? So doing a little bit of work on the should, or why you're feeling that that person should be doing that. Why is it important to you, and why is it bugging you? Why are you like, okay, they're not meeting my expectations and I'm still expecting this from this person? Should. So what's your should?
Sometimes that should
And
is, well, they're my mother and my father, and they should love me and treat me properly. And I think the hard thing is with people like that, it's just like, yeah, we all feel like honestly, we know the answer, which is you have to put up those boundaries and really stick to them and show
Mhm.
them that the way they're treating you is not right. And if they do want to be a part of your life, they have to respect your boundaries. So I guess sometimes at some
Yes.
point we do have to finally stand up for ourselves, communicate exactly what they're doing wrong and what you need. And if that person is going to be so petty and immature to not even reflect on what you said and
Right.
potentially change behavior, then yeah, it just sucks. Sometimes they do have to be cut out of your life for your own peace. And that's kind of what we're here every week. We're trying our best to reach inner peace by working through all these different emotions and feelings that we've been throwing out every week. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's where they come hand in hand, right? Sometimes that those expectations lead to the boundaries, because you can try and you can communicate and get your point across. And if the person just isn't getting it, and if you've done a little bit of work on the should and decide that, okay, that's just, if this is just still one-sided or whatever, then yeah, sometimes bigger decisions have to be made. Unfortunately, it does happen. um but yeah, it's just sort of the opportunity to look at why we have that expectation, whatever it might be, and why it's important to us. And yeah, that was just a big thing for me, really getting down to the root of the should, and then sort of switching it up. So yeah, maybe they should do that, but they're not. So now I'm no longer going to harp on the should. I'd
mm,
spend too much time harping on the
yes,
should.
well said.
So forget it. I'm pitching that they should, but they're not. here I am. That's okay. I'm just gonna do my thing here. Like, okay, when you're ready to whatever, have a different outlook or come meet me halfway or talk about this, great. I'm not gonna concentrate on that should scenario anymore.
Totally, because we, as much as we want life to be sunshine and rainbows all the time, the truth is it's not going to be, and everything should
No,
be this way and should be that way. And
yeah,
that's why at the end of the day, we're all
yeah.
working together to give each other tools for when the should doesn't happen. How can
Mm-hmm.
we remain composed and not break down instantly when that should doesn't happen? Because the should will
Yeah.
probably only happen like 10% of the time in life.
Yes.
So, yeah,
Yes.
we should never rely on the should. And yeah, because we'll be, that's another expectation. Well, yeah, that's why you
Yeah.
were saying should. It's an expectation.
Well, because there is the two sides, right? We can build up the best case scenario in our head. And that's what's supposed to happen. And then when of course it doesn't happen, we're super disappointed. Then we can also build up the worst case scenario in our head and really freak ourselves out and have a negative emotion with it. And then when that doesn't happen, oh thank God,
Right?
relief. So both happen, but it's really easy to create those scenarios in our head um, of how something's supposed to be, and then you attach emotions to it. And so that's why sometimes it can get very out of hand if expectations aren't met and people feel entitled to have the result that they this is what's going to happen
Hmm.
because you're not leaving room for um things to sort of happen on their own when you have that expectation.
Yeah,
And
when
there
you're
there
already
is
so attached to the outcome.
yep,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
that's the hard one. But I mean, expectations can be good motivators, right? We sort of just need to control what we're thinking and make sure that the expectations aren't unrealistic. That's all.
And I'm gonna throw this quote out again because I just feel like it's relevant every week. Oftentimes, we suffer more in imagination than we do in reality. We build all those scenarios in our head how
Mm,
things should go, and then it never goes the way the million things you built in your head never happens
hmm
that way. So,
exactly. And sort of letting go of that should or that what is, um, it sort of lets you embrace the gratitude of what is actually happening instead. Um, and finding something in your present reality that's in front of you to sort of connect to. And it I think was important to remember. I had to like really work on that too because you can't just forget the should. Like the should came from somewhere,
mhm.
right? So it doesn't make that gap that's in between what you want and what you get disappear. That gap can't just disappear. But it's sort of, if you've worked on, feeling your way through that, it sort of allows you a different thought pattern about it. It gives you that opportunity to have a different thought pattern and maybe create some space in your mind to not absorb those negative emotions. You're just concentrating on what actually is there, and it'll help that in between because yeah, that gap doesn't disappear. You had a should or an expectation maybe for a reason, but that's your responsibility
And
to dig and
not to
find it.
like take back too much, but I think after you saying all that, it makes me kind of want to take back that expectations always lead to disappointment. I almost want
Mm,
to say they only lead to disappointment if we're attached to the outcome. If we're attached to that should. We can have that this should
yes.
happen, but then if it doesn't happen, that's where the term like these one-liners go with the flow. Like why
Yes.
is that a saying in life? Because it's true. Go with the flow
Yeah.
of life. And that's like life gets so just easier when you're just able to just take things as it comes, have some
Yeah.
expectations, have some outcomes planned, but if they don't happen, it is what it is, recalculate and move forwards.
Exactly. And it's okay if you really can't let go of your should. That's okay too. That's when you're just decide. Okay, I've tried to communicate. I do have these expectations. The should is still very important to me, so that's okay. That's when you sit, and if maybe some harder decisions have to be made, then that's where you're at. That's okay. Nothing's permanent, right? If that's just where you're at with your expectation and your boundary right now, you just gotta live through it.
Love it. And maybe one last thing, Wendy, before we can close out for the day. Just kind of a side thought for me. What
Sure.
are your thoughts on like humans and water as an analogy or like a metaphor? You know how they say like humans should be like water, where you just like you flow and you crash and like have you
Oh,
these kind of analogies where humans are kind of like water?
yes, I there is one with an ocean, of course, that I just recognize it when I see it. I don't have it sort of memorized, but there it is kind that one's a little just about the phases, right, of a wave. And how it goes out, and there might be some turmoil and stuff, and then it comes in and crashes on the sand, and then it's a brand new wave going out. I think, and I'm an ocean, so you asked the right person that question because I'm an ocean lover. But yeah, I think there is something to that. Every day is a little bit of a new wave, right? And we're all just fluidly moving through this time, through this space, and we have to try and move through it as fluidly as we can. And maybe that's where I find a lot of peace at the water, is just the phases of how it moves. An ocean anyways, if the phases of how it moves are very identical to how I feel about moving through every day. How about you?
Oh, I think you said it perfectly. I was just about to say, I think nature is the greatest representation of no matter where you look in nature, you can almost find the exact metaphor for life within all of it. Like the
Yes.
way a tree stands and gains its wisdom in a forest. Like if you want to
Mm-hmm.
almost characterize everything in a forest and that's like give them life and try to understand their life and find the wisdom in every piece of nature. I mean, that's why poetry even exists because people will sit there and just watch and be in the moment and examine
Mm.
how the world is just working no matter what. And then you can just find the deepness. I don't know at what point in my life, but I almost and like I'm always on the extreme spectrum, but I always try to find the deeper meaning and the deeper metaphors to absolutely everything. And
Yeah.
then sometimes I make things way more deep than they need to be. And and it comes with the territory. But for me, that's where I get all my gratitude from. When I look at a
Yeah.
tree, I look at an ocean and I watch the birds or see the rabbits or see the deer or watch flowers grow or how they smell. It's like you start to just when you really look and appreciate all that life in front of you, you start to cultivate a lot more gratitude.
Oh, of course. Like even just the most simple one, the caterpillar to the butterfly. Come on. Like you're right. Everything in nature, and even just standing in amongst a bunch of trees, and just the tiny whisper when there's just enough wind for the leaves. Like, yeah, it's a beautiful experience to connect ourselves to nature that way. Totally agree.
Love it. So, what would be some homework for today, Wendy? If anyone was listening, I know my mother, she watches every week. She's got an entire scrapbook of notes now that she's taken. And hopefully, there's been some nuggets today that came through. But any homework to take away with Wendy?
Well, so and if you are on autopilot, what might help you come out of autopilot? So check in on that for sure, and try and notice something different around you for a little bit. That's the homework off the card. See if you can find something new around you. And then when we touched on the boundaries and the values, let's see if everybody knows what their values are. Come up with two or three of them for yourself. Share them in the comments, whatever. Don't, totally up to you guys. Keep them private if you want. But let's see if everybody knows where their values are and where they lie and how they could maybe use them to motivate that that boundary line and where they could set those boundaries.
Love it. And we've been getting some really amazing comments. I know a commenter by the name of Melissa had commented asking us if we could touch more on a certain topic. I'll do that as my homework. I'll go see what you want us to touch on, Melissa, and maybe next episode we can dive a little deeper into that for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Whatever it is, let me know which one that is. And yeah, that's great to hear too, because I think with self improvement and spirituality and all these things, there's so many umbrellas. And so if we ever just touch quickly on something within a topic, you guys are like, oh, I wrote that down. Yep. You let us know.
Right? It's like the iceberg theory where it's like we have the term and then everything is the real crux of everything is all under the water that you can't see.
Yeah.
And you can only get so deep into all these things when you're trying to stick to a couple general words. It's just funny that we can speak for over an hour and we just have two words on our page coming into this boundaries and expectations, but then it takes you into all these rabbit holes and loopholes and why do I feel this way? Why am I feeling that way? I should feel this way. I need to do this. I need to do that. So it's a never-ending journey of practice, self-discovery, daily work, and we're never going to be perfect. We're never going to be 100% right. We can just do our best.
That's right. And one last thing for the homework, just when you said that, one last thing. Everybody work on reminding yourselves that you're safe. Just that too, in relation to everything. I know we touched on it with the boundaries, but just that can help in lots of ways, not just boundaries, but because we discussed it in that. Everybody work a little bit on just when they need to remind yourselves that you're safe.
One more quote before we sign out here.
Yeah.
Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is the present. That's why today is a gift. That is why they call it the present.
Love it.
Kind of butchered it, but
no.
What it
and
is.
My gift today is to be able to share this space with you. That is amazing. I love that quote. That's a good one.
Look forward to this every Tuesday, Wendy. Thank you for your time and great talking to you.
Yeah, you too. Have a great evening. We will see you again
next Tuesday.
See you next week. See ya.